about Wisdom. This program started in 2019, and since then we have had 43 interns working in the Mojave Trails National Monument, which was established in 2016. So they have worked on a variety of projects, like studying the movement of bighorn sheep, to studying tamarask beetles, bumblebees in Afton Canyon, studying the dark night skies, and this team of interns have taken on a new to this program project that we have called the Afton Canyon Bio-Blitz. But before we get started, I wanted to introduce Sarah, our Director of Community Conservation Initiatives, and she's going to tell us more about the cultural importance and history of the area.
Thank you, Mackenzie. So before all of the events, we like to give a land acknowledgement, and not only a land acknowledgement, but also talking about things that MDLT does and things that everyone can do to learn more about the indigenous communities where you live. So for the land acknowledgement, right here, we're at MDLT headquarters. And this is the traditional homelands of the Serrano, Mojave, Cahuilla, and Mojave people. This landscape we're in is actually near the oasis of Mara, which is the place of creation for the Serrano people, and for the Mojave people was their home as they were escaping war in the 1800s. Throughout the corridor, and you see the road over here, this was an area of trade, of connection, of gathering. And so before any event or almost everything you do here, we like to give that acknowledgement. And going beyond land acknowledgements, that's one big thing that our department and MDOT is working on, is different ways of co-management, stewardship, tribal access, and all sorts of different programs to be able to make sure that we do our best for the tribal and indigenous communities. For the Afton Bio-Blitz project, they worked in the Afton Canyon. So that's a little bit, that's an hour and a half or so north of us here, along the Mojave River. And even though, that's, let's say, an hour and a half change, that's also the traditional landscapes of the Serrano people, also has connection with Paiute people. Along the Mojave River, you see many traditional Serrano villages along that river, places of traditional gathering, as well as fishing, and a lot of village and cultural sites there. And so that's also one thing that the work on is build that connection, learn more about the history as we do projects. And so for individuals, there's a ton of different resources. One thing I like to point people to is a website called Native Land, I think -CA. And that one, if you actually go on there, you'll see traditional homelands, but without the modern boundaries. And you can click and learn more. So yeah, anytime you want to learn more about some of these resources, feel free to find myself. And we also have also more information on the websites and things like that. So thank you.
Okay, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce Russell, Aurelia, and Grecia.
Hello. So what is Wisdom? Wisdom is our internship. It stands for Women in Science Discovering Our Mojave. It is provided by the Mojave Desert Land Trust. It's supported by the Conservation Lands Foundation, and it's an incorporation of the Bureau of Land Management. It's established in 2019, and the whole purpose is to more women in the STEM field, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. And in 2021, 18% of the STEM workforce were women, and that is notable from 2011 when it's 15. So internships like this help bridge that gap and bring more women into the STEM fields.
All right, so hello everybody, my name is Morelia. I am a Wisdom intern for the 2025 MDLT cohort, and I am a associate to transfer student of biology at Copper Mountain College. and I am an aspiring marine biologist hoping to specialize in shark conservation, behavior, and ecology. If y'all want to check out some of the data that I was able to find during this internship, my iNaturalist username is up there, MRG6. Y'all are welcome to go ahead and take a look at that.
Hello, my name is Gracie Ortega. I'm another wisdom intern for the 2025 Afton Canyon Bio-Blitz. I recently graduated from the University of California, Riverside with a Bachelor of Arts in Media and Cultural Studies. Starting next week, I am going to be an outdoor education intern for the Student Conservation Association up in Washington State. And my research and career interests are in science communication and outdoor education. And if you would like to connect with me on iNaturalist, my username is GoGoBerry.
Hello, my name is Leanne Russell. I go by my last name Russell. I have an AS in Plant Science. I am currently a Park Service worker for the San Bernardino County Regional Parks UCAIPA. I'm also a wisdom intern. I participated in the Bio-Blitz of Afton Canyon. My username is Rusty Outdoors. Some notable things that I have done in the past is I was also a ranger for Bluff Lake. And during my time at Bluff Lake, I was able to participate and assist field biologists. And what we did, we collected native bees, and then we identified the native bees, and then I was able to also help out with filling out that paperwork. I also carry and manage for 110 endemic plants during one of our research projects. I also owned and operated a native nursery, and I filed all the proper paperwork for licensing and seed collecting. I also sourced native seeds and cloned native plants.
So throughout our project, we use this app called iNaturalist, which is a free public app for everyone to use. And you can log in your own observations, whether it be in animals, plants, bugs, or birds. And it's open for everyone to see any organisms that occur. And they could also help you identify. So if you have a question for a particular species that you saw, other people are able to see your observations and help you identify those observations. And iNaturalist's main mission is community science, which can be defined as the public's participation in scientific research. So by public, it means anyone without formal science training or education. And usually community science is done through the collection of data and observations, but it can be done in many ways. So data from iNaturalist has been used to study the yucca and Joshua tree flowering chronology. And our data specifically will be beneficial for anyone interested in learning about any common or endangered or protected species within the Mojave trails.
So while we were participating in this internship, we were able to learn a lot about the California ecosystems. So California has a lot of biomes. A biome is essentially a very large geographical area that has different or similar environmental conditions. So here you can see many different sections of what California's biomes are. For example, we are currently in the desert biome. This is characterized by mesquites, sagebrush, and just about any plant that you can look outside and see. Now, the California scenery it's very different. I'm sure all of you know about this, but for example, if you go further up north, you have Klamath, which has very foresty, coastal, rainforest type of vibes. So this is an example of how different the California ecosystems are and how different California in itself is. That's why programs like these are very important, so that we can all study every single ecosystem and bring attention to every ecosystem and highlight how important all of them are. Now, more specifically, while we were in Afton Canyon, we were studying the ecotone of Afton Canyon. So an ecotone specifically is changes in just one area. So here you can see in this one picture of Afton Canyon, there is both two sides that are very brown, they're very dry, they look like there's nothing there. That would be considered a mesquite and sagebrush area. It is not very usually bright, colorful, any green on it. And that's usually because most of the water in this area goes directly into the middle, into what we call a riparian. So here you can see a lot of biodiversity within the area with just plants, animals, just about anything, because again, that's where all the water goes into.
So what makes Afton Canyon so special? It's part of the Mojave River drainage, and it's one of the only two places where you'll find water year-round. The first place would be the Mojave Narrows. The second place will be Afton Canyon. And the specific riparian area it is called a temporal desert riparian system. And that means that it's fed by our seasonal rains that happen during our monsoon season. So what will happen is that rain will come in, and this whole entire area where you see that green, that will be all flushed out by flash floods. And then that water will like sit there, and it will feed the plant and plant life. And specifically, you'll see right here, this like little green area. As you see up there, that will be the riparian area. That's where water is constantly, compared to right here, where this is where the water will slowly evaporate. And through that evaporation, it will leave salts behind. So in the riparian area, you will see cattails, bulrushes, yerba manzas, and then as you come out here, where there's farther, like more salt from that evaporation, you'll get more of the alkaline steep community. And that will be your big sage salt bush, your cattle salt bush, and your salt grasses. And then as you go farther out, farther away from the water, you'll get more into our creosote scrublands, where you find creosotes, beaver tails, cotton tops, and jumping teddy bear cactuses. So why is it so important, our work here in Afton Canyon? And that's because it's a wildlife corridor. Because there's a presence of water, plants will grow, plants provide shelter for the animals, and they'll also provide food for the animals. And because it's left mostly like untouched by humans, it becomes a wildlife corridor, and animals will use it to migrate to certain areas. So when we're thinking of a wildlife corridor, we think of like our house. And each room is a specific environment. And to connect those environments, you use the hallway, like you would in a house, to connect different rooms. And that hallway would be considered a wildlife corridor. And wildlife corridors are specific for animals who need to find a new source of food, or it will aid migration from Central America all the way up to North America, or it will promote genetic diversity when animals are looking for new mates. A wonderful example of this was observed by Gracia. Thank you, Gracia. She observed our western kingbird. And our western kingbird is a migratory bird. And it first starts here in Central America, and it winters there, and then it will migrate. And this yellow area would be the area in which it's passing. And you can see us right there in that little tip of California, that little yellow spot. That's where we were able to observe the kingbird. And then as it goes to the orange spot, that's where they will mate. Afton Canyon for the western kingbird was like a little resting area from one place to another. Coyote, observed by me, thank you very much. They have a seasonal dispersal. So their migration is a little bit closer. You know, they're not traveling far. They do travel, you know, quite a ways. I think it's like 1,000 miles. And in their dispersal, it usually happens in September and November. And when they're dispersing, they're looking for new territories to occupy. And they're also looking for mates to occupy those new territories. And this will be like more of like a mating migration that we'll see. And this was observed by Ruby. Thank you, Ruby. She was able to observe some scat from the desert bighorn sheep. And they have more of like a seasonal migration. So during the hot months, they will go more towards where there's water sources. And then during the winter, they will travel where they will find more vegetation to eat. And then during like the springtime, they will go more into a higher elevation. And that is to protect their young from predators. So those are the different migratories that we'll see in Afton Canyon and why wildlife corridors are so special and the reason to protect them.
So wisdom interns, while we were out in Afton Canyon, what we were doing is something called belt transit. So belt transits usually involve a 30-meter tape that we would take, put a stake into the board and walk it along the board, cardinal directions, so that we could be able to take data from either one of the sides along a meter radius. Now, this information is very important because we're able to then post it on iNaturalist, which can help bridge a gap in between what scientists now know about the Afton Canyon. Now, once you get that data, how do you identify this data? So, in order to identify an animal, plant, or whatever it is you took a picture of, there's some key things you need to take a look at. So, for example, right now I'm going to talk about a bumblebee. If you take a picture of a bumblebee, first thing you would do is 1, take note of the wingspan of said bumblebee. 2, take note of the colors, any markings that it may have. And then 3, check whether or not they would be in this region during that particular season. And it's very similar to do that with any different types of plants. So for example, if you find a little flower and you want to know what type of flower it is, so you would go ahead, take pictures of it and check, well, I suspect it might be this flower, but you need to check, is it in bloom during this season? That way you can narrow down the information and find more specifically what type of plant it is. Now, while we were doing our transects and collecting data, we often had to identify a lot of plants. I mean, a lot. So in order to do that, we would often consult with one another. We would consult websites, books, and even iNaturalist has an identifier engine on it. However, take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes it does make some mistakes. I would, once more, cross-reference with other sites. Here are some very helpful sites that you can check out, such as Cloud Flora, which has a lot of data about different vegetation native to California, as well as Bumblebee Atlas, if you're looking into bumblebees. Now, some very helpful books that you can find about the Mojave area is Mojave Desert Wildflowers by Pam McKay, and Bumblebees of North America by Paul Williams, Robin Thorpe, Leif Richardson, and Sheila Kola. And these are actually all bees from California, so try to see if you can spot them later on when you're out and about.
And you can get involved tonight, and you will get involved in our Discovery Garden, and you're going to start documenting your observations. So tonight, you guys will be community scientists from now on until forward. We're going to be out there helping you guys out, but here are some tips to how better make an observation into iNaturalist. So specifically for plants, these are some important elements that you want to include so you can better determine the species. So you want to make sure you get a photo of the flowers. So either live or dead, they're both equally as important. Any fruits or buds. So in this photo here, this is the desert willow taken by Russell. You can see here, we can see some flowers and also some buds right there that haven't quite flowered yet. The leaves. Take a photo of the leaves, including the underside. So if you ever notice the underside of the leaf, you kind of notice that it's a little bit fuzzy. So that's also really important. And as well, you want to take a photo of the whole plant. That's really great to compare. When you're out in the field, you'll also see bugs, animals, and even tracks. And these guys are a little bit more difficult to get a photo of because they do like to scatter and run around. So some tips if your subject is moving fast. So for example, this dragonfly right here, you can take a video and then go on after and take a screenshot of the video and upload that into iNaturalist. So this is actually a dragonfly that I took a video of, and that photo is a screenshot from that video. For smaller guys like this western pygmy blue, you can use a hand lens and put that up to your camera, and that'll turn it into a macro lens. So now you can get a closer shot of the little critter. Birds, you can take a photo, but you can also log in the bird calls. So you can record an audio. If you have an iPhone, you can use the voice memo app, but I believe all phones have the capability to record audio, and you could upload that to Merlin. And Merlin is an app specifically to identify bird calls. And once you have that identification, you could then go back in and upload that into iNaturalist. And for tracks, for example, this coyote track, you want to place an object next to your track and use that as a size reference so people can actually see how big, for example, this paw is.
Before I say my special thanks, all of our observations we did see in Afton Canyon, and after our presentation on our board, there will be a little QR code. If you want to use that QR code to see our actual observations, that'll be great. So I'll continue with my special thanks. I'd like to have a special thanks to the Conservation Land Foundation, who gave us the opportunities and funds to conduct this Bio-Blitz in Afton Canyon. A special thanks for the Bureau of Land Management, who gave us this opportunity and mentorship in Afton Canyon. A special thanks to the Mojave Desert Land Trust, who gave us the opportunities and tools to conduct the Bio-Blitz in Afton Canyon. And a round of applause, please. For Mackenzie, who advocated for us and always kept our best interests in mind as interns.
Thank you guys, great work. It's been great to see the interns